The following episode of the Maui Chamber of Commerce's Business Matters was originally broadcast on December 30th, 2025.
Welcome to Business Matters, brought to you by the Maui Chamber of Commerce. And now here's your host, the president of the Maui Chamber of Commerce, Pam Toompop. Good morning, Pam.
Good morning, Gary. How are you this morning?
I'm doing well. I'm looking forward to a great show.
Oh, well, thank you so much. It is going to be a great show this morning.
But they're all great.
We love them all. We have such phenomenal guests.
Yes,
it's always
we do.
a treasure to talk to people in our community and learn more about, things that are happening in the community and, of course, in business and hear their amazing stories. So, yes, thank you. I'm looking forward to this morning as well. And just while we're starting on that note, also just sending blessings to everybody this holiday season. It's really a wonderful and fabulous time. And so, and I don't know about you, it's a little dark up here in Pukalani, but still a beautiful morning.
Yeah, it does look cloudy up there, but down here it's nice. It's still dark, though.
Oh, okay. Yep. It's just the season.
Yes.
Well, thank you for all you do for our show, Gary. We cherish you.
Thank you. And thank you for everything you do for the community.
Thank you. Well, folks, this morning, welcome. It's going to be a great morning. Today we're going to talk about something that's really important. Last week we talked about the need really to have Hawaii be more of a business-friendly state. And one of those key things is really dealing with a lot of permitting issues and how we can really help expedite permitting. For years at the Chamber of Commerce, we've had from government workers to elected officials who've gone to other regions and said, we have seen how permitting can be expedited in the housing and building arena and in all elements of the housing and arena in a matter of like 2 months to down to like 1 day, where mayors would call the team together and people would expedite the permitting and you'd get approvals from all of the departments at one time. And this has gone on for every election year when we look at candidates and ask them questions about their platforms. We have heard these stories now for next year in 2026. It will be 20 years that we have heard these stories as we talk to candidates and also in the work we do for advocacy to hear how other people are doing it differently. And so this past legislative session last year, they passed a piece of legislation that was really important. And what came out of that was the SPEED, SPEED, task force. And SPEED stands for Simplifying Permitting for Economic Development. And it involves streamlining regulations, using technology for faster approvals, and creating task forces to coordinate agencies. And it was through the Hawaii Speed Task Force bill to cut red tape, encourage investment, and speed up projects, boosting local economies by reducing developer costs and time, fostering growth in housing, infrastructure, and businesses. Okay, hallelujah. This is right up the Chamber's angle. And so in doing this, they looked at all sorts of things to simplify permitting, from digitization to coordination, bringing different agencies together, including the county and state, to avoid conflicting requirements, standardization, creating uniform rules and checklists across jurisdictions, clear timelines to set and enforce deadlines for permit approvals, and really looking at streamlining pre-approval processes for different types of projects. Of course, very notably, affordable housing and renewable energy has been discussed. They looked at understanding that the holdups that permitting is costing us in terms of economic benefits. Okay, so, by streamlining this, we'll have lower administrative burdens for businesses, faster construction approval, getting things moving for housing, commercial spaces, and infrastructure, increased investment so that people can predict how long things are going to take. As an example, I'm working with a business who just getting into a certificate of occupancy and addressing some of the things the past tenant left badly in a tenant space has taken over 2 years. during this time. So there are issues where we really need to speed this up. And of course, understanding that in speeding this up, you're getting work moving faster. It speeds up development, leading to more immediate employment opportunities. So we are so thrilled that this bill was established, and that they came up with a short timeline. So it was established in 2025. They're going to be operating through 2027. With funding allocated for operations to keep the task force going. And it's made up of a broad base. And today we're going to hear from Jennifer Salisbury, who's one of the members. But there's 34 members of elected officials from the state, federal government, and all 4 counties, also state and county government employees from our 4 counties, public utilities, developers, construction unions, entrepreneurs in the housing industry, and more. It is really an amazing group. And they've got 3 supporting what they call PIGs. Normally in Maui, we're used to TIGs, temporary investigative groups. These are PIGs for permitting investigative groups. And we're going to talk about some of the issues that are being tackled in each of these areas. And then we're going to hear from Robbie Dean. Many of you know Robbie as a local real estate broker, but he also has a company called American Craft, and we're going to learn more about that. But let me introduce you to Jennifer Salisbury, because she is an amazing figure here in Hawaii. Has been involved in real estate development for many years, is a community advocate, particularly in the area of affordable housing, serves as a member of the Small Business Regulatory Review Board. She brings her expertise in construction and communications and training and education to help local businesses thrive by reducing barriers. She is known for her real estate acumen, also helping investors, and her passion for improving the business environment. She is a strong community advocate and voice for affordable housing and regulatory reform in Hawaii and, of course, Maui. So good morning, Jennifer. Welcome to the show. It's great to have you on today.
Oh, good morning. Thanks for having me on. Holy makahiki ho.
Holy makahiki ho. It is great to be celebrating the holidays with you. Well, I first just want to thank you because you have been just a strong champion and participant on the Speed Task Force. Can you share with everybody a little bit about the 3 different, what they call the PIGs? I always said, who wants to be a pig? But the permitting investigative groups. Can you tell everybody a little bit about the 3 permitting investigative groups and your service in this area?
You bet. So the first group of 3 PIGs occurred in 2025 between October and December. And there are going to be 2 additional groups of 3 PIGs coming up in 2026. So this is only the first group of PIGs. The first 3 PIGs were focusing on Department of Health and specifically individual wastewater systems, which ties directly into housing when you're talking about septic and other things that tie into it. Right?
And then I said it's very near and dear to your heart. You've been working on this for years.
Long time. And then the second PIG was 6E compliance, which is the State Historic Preservation District, which is the state agency that deals with archaeological items, historic artifacts, iwi kapuna, burial councils, setting up monitoring plans, and it's mostly in the SMA, but it's not always in the SMA. So Lahaina, you heard a lot about the SMA in Lahaina and how the SMA boundaries were shifted. That was talked a lot about in the Shifty PIG. And the third PIG, this group was about building permits, which was all vertical construction. It didn't talk at all about anything in site work. It didn't talk about anything regarding anything in the ground, right? It was all vertical about codes and how quickly we change codes. And the building permits one was by far the most intense, and there was the most conversation, but the other 2 were not far behind. And I know that because I served on all 3 of these PIGs, right? Yeah. So I volunteered. Absolutely. I don't get paid to do this. I volunteered, and these were weekly meetings for at least 2 hours every week October to December on all three of them. It was my pleasure to do it. Mm-hmm.
It's been amazing, and you've been taking notes along the way and sharing them. I did want to mention because you mentioned SMA, and for those who don't know, what we're talking about is, as Jennifer mentioned, talks a lot about this in the Lahaina shoreline management area, which is really important, especially now with sea level rise. There's a lot of concerns happening with sea level rise and how we're managing our shorelines. As we've seen a lot of beach areas need replenishment and other remediation issues. So, yes, you've been doing this. It's been quite an investment. Many people have signed up for one of these, and you've signed up for all three. Can we go through each of the three that you've served on and talk a little bit about each and what you see as some of the major discussions and movement to move us more positively forward in each of these three?
Yeah, you bet. So let's start with Department of Health. Of course, that's a state agency with state folks on each island in each county. And again, this PIG was for individual wastewater systems. And we talked a lot about cesspool conversion, the cesspool conversion deadline, 2050. And the best part about me being an entrepreneur and a contractor and a volunteer on this task force is I get to be as blatantly and respectfully raw as possible. Where in this PIG, I straight up said, you realize that the generation who owns places like in Makawao, like in Maui Meadows, who are in septic, and there's real estate transactions that cannot occur because there's what I call an impossible lot where a septic either can't be put in or it's not feasible to put it in because of the cost. And so I just said, you guys are causing a lot of heartache. And what's happened is people have become detached, meaning, let's say you've got grandma, grandpa owns the property, and let's say they're in their 60s, 70s, 80s. Then their children are 40s, 50s in that realm who will likely inherit this home. And then they have their children. And so you've got multiple generations. This is not new in Hawaii. Right. This is not new. But what's happening is the grandparents go, you know what? The cesspool conversion deadline is 2050. I'm going to be dead by then. You guys deal with it. And that is exactly what's happening. And right. So we talked about the motivating factors on how can we help provide. And so there was all kinds of things like incentive package, financial incentive packages. Also, in the march up to the 2050 deadline, my question was, are there more conversations on the calendar to track the progress of this conversion? Or are we just going to get to 2050 and go, oh, out of the 86,000 cesspools we need to convert in the state of Hawaii, we only did half, which is about what we're on track for. In fact, less than half right now. And just be okay with that. And I was like, isn't the whole idea of this PIG and this task force to be responsible stewards looking forward and going, how can we make this easier for people to not only convert to septic, but also maybe put in incentives for local areas like, well, I'll just say it. I used to live in Makawao for a long, long time. In Makawao, what about a capital improvement program to put a wastewater treatment plant there so people don't have to convert? They would just tie in. Now, that's easier said than done. I understand the logistics and the topography of Makawao specifically. It may not be the best thing, and it would be incredibly intrusive to do something like that. But it's an option, so we had to put it on the table. And that was the whole idea of all of these PIGs, was to bring forward recommendations, and then we would do what's called a SWOT analysis, where we would say the strengths, the weaknesses, the opportunities, the threats of each aspect. And then I would actually take it one step forward because I'm a chronic overachiever. And I would go, we can't possibly be the only place on the planet with this problem. And in this example, I'm talking about cesspool conversions. Well, right. Lo and behold, I didn't realize that Long Island, New York, Suffolk County, New York, guess what? They're also going through this. So I reached out to Long Island, to Suffolk County, and said, hey, you guys are battling this too. What are some of your lessons learned? Why isn't Hawaii talking more with New York about this? Because it's the same problem there's got to be, somebody else has already learned these lessons. We don't have to learn them all, green every time. So that's just a bit of a snip for Department of Health. And one thing I do want to talk about, though, is we were brought up because the septic systems typically have been limited to 5-bedroom or bedroom-like rooms. And this became a very hot topic because you limit what you can have if, like, let's say you have an office that is a den. Well, the size of the doors matter. It gets incredibly technical. And so, I mean, I'm in these PIG meetings with the head of DOH wastewater. Like, I'm at the table talking about this with the people, which is an amazing thing to have a voice. So I have to be very careful on how I frame some of this stuff and not be, so bold. But at the same time, my questions are always reasonable. And I said, why is it that you won't give me a septic for a den when you and I both know that you could put an air mattress in a hallway and call the hallway a bedroom? As a result of some of these discussions, the Department of Health put out a note that you can now certify either the owner or one of the engineers or architect, whatever is applicable, can certify that that's not going to be a bedroom, and they'll move on without it. That is huge.
It
right?
is.
And so,
I saw your letter, and we've been dealing with this for a very long time. Sometimes also even at the county level, and how they determine to call a space, what they call a space.
Right.
But again, it's about use, right? How many people are going to be flushing toilets, using water, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, and things like pantries and dens and walk-in closets and things like that, it's like you could put a bed literally anywhere. So why can't we go back? Because everything is on the onus of the property owner who's doing these building permits anyway. So if the owner is taking responsibility, saying, you know what, this really is going to be a pantry. I really do want a walk-in pantry. It really isn't going to be a bedroom. Then they should have it. And they agreed. I think that's amazing. I mean, it's something small, but it works.
Well, it does sound like something small if you're not in the industry, but you are in the industry. You have tons of experience about this. I mean, far more than me, but I can say that just even in my role at the chamber, this is something that we help people navigate and deal with. Even though it's not about their business, their members, and it's about their home and issues like this. And some people, I would love a huge pantry because I believe in sustainability. So I would like to have space to store things in the event of a disaster. And so again, but as you point out, often it's these simple realities. Like you said, well, you could put a blow-up bed in a hallway and still have more people in the household. So I loved seeing, and you sent us a copy of the letter, and I just love seeing that win because it acknowledges here's how we can do it that will satisfy our requirements, right? Here's the certification that the drawings are going to give us or the owner's going to give us, and as you said, puts it back, the onus back on them, and then says, so we can allow these things versus in the past. Something as simple as trying to describe that and get some approval on that could take months, if not over a year. Well,
Pam, with your permission, let's move on to the second PIG because I want to get to all three because this is pretty incredible. What's going, and then of course leading up to next Tuesday's task force meeting at the state capitol, which I'm going to be attending in person. Task force is actually flying me over from Maui to attend in person, which I greatly appreciate. I've spent quite a bit of hours, so I appreciate to actually see these people in person. So the 6E compliance with State Historic Preservation District, SHPD, regarding archaeology, and that all comes up regarding historical artifacts and beyond, typically in shoreline areas, but doesn't always have to be there, especially if you know of the history of locations, if there's been an archaeological inventory study, that there are historical artifacts, even if it's not near the shoreline, then this is where SHPD, that's the slang for State Historic Preservation District, SHPD comes in and says, okay, well, based on what we know or what's on neighboring properties, let's say, we know there's very likely going to be Iwi Kupuna. right? There's very likely
Right.
going to be this. And so they'll come up with a requirement of you've got to do monitoring, or you've got to consult the burial council, especially if there's an inadvertent discovery. And so you've got to consult the burial council for that island, right? Maui has one. One of the issues that we came up with at this pig was that the burial council meetings often are during the workday. Burial council members are having a hard time attending, which means you're having a hard time getting quorum, which means the meetings don't actually occur. And if they do occur, nothing can get voted on. And so that they meet monthly. And so there's been discussions about why can't we just change the meeting time to later in the day that's more convenient, or let the burial councils set their own time to meet. Make it easy for them to attend. There was also discussion of creating a state burial council. And again, this is all about trying to have a known time frame that people like me, contractors, developers, people who are trying to provide housing, can actually budget time, budget money, budget skill, right? Budget equipment, all of the things that we know we need to create housing. And this is where if you have some of these solutions. But one of the most interesting recommendations that's coming back to the task force is, it actually came from SHPE. There were several recommendations that they came up with, but one of them I find really intriguing, and they are proposing to create what is called a heat map. And the heat map is like stoplight colors, let's say. It would be green, yellow, and red. And what those colors would indicate is, on a parcel, the probability of finding a historical artifact of some kind. And so if you, let's say you want to build a home in a subdivision that has been serviced, very likely that's been ground disturbance before. If it's not during the shoreline, you don't need an SMA, all of these things, it very likely would be the color of green, because the likelihood of finding a historical artifact is likely low, right? But if you've got something else that is, you can see that there are historic walls, or maybe there was a historic structure, or we know that the neighboring parcels all have iwi kapuna, or, you know, there's a lot of different things where, or it's near the shoreline potentially, then the heat map would indicate red. And each one would have a different, each color on the heat map would have a different time requirement for SHPE to respond. If it's a green parcel, what they're proposing is saying, you know what, it shouldn't take us more than 30 days to look at that parcel and go, you know what, there's no ground disturbance, you know, no new ground disturbance. It's all been developed. You're fine. SHPE signs off on it. It's kind of the low-hanging fruit. But for the other, the yellow and the red ones, that would be a little bit longer. And what they're saying is they're proposing 60 days for an initial review. An initial review. Now, remember, SHPE is taking quite a long time to do reviews right now. And at the end of the day, all of the pigs came up with the same concerns: staffing. And so they can't do every single review every single time, every single way, because they simply don't have enough staff. And these are skilled people. And I'm also talking for Department of Health as well as building permits, not only at the state level, but in the county levels. That was brought up is the staff. The next thing that was brought up was the role of AI. They said, why can't we just start doing more technology-based things? And that's why this heat map came up and said, look, if we have a parcel, you put the TMK in, and it comes up and says SHPE code green, then it should be within 30 days, set your watch. It should be pretty reasonable to expect that you're going to find this. But again, that's very little bit of human intervention, especially when the heat maps are created, right? So that's kind of some of the things that come out, and some of these conversations can get super lively, like, wow. Yeah.
So I'll just share a quick story so one, that's fabulous. Also to the point where you're deciding how many days, because I've recently been made aware of an action on a parcel that had 2 archaeological surveys, has been operating for over 20 plus years. And recently there was a finding when somebody went off the parcel to the neighboring parcel, still owned by the owner who runs a business there. And there was a finding And with that finding, the business has been completely halted, and with no understanding of when they can begin operations. And this is something new, and it's in an area where there's been a lot of flooding and runoff. So the finding could have come from up above, but in the meantime, the business is completely halted, meaning the employees have had to be laid off. You know, it's a significant impact with no, right now, determination on, you know, when they can look at reopening. So this is a very pertinent thing, and also again, you know, there's no deadline that says, okay, well, you know, they've sent people out, but there's no deadline on how long it will take to do the analysis and the study, and right. So in the meantime, they're completely shut down. So this is a really critical issue right now, and I'm glad that this is, you know, one of we were glad to see SHPD for the long problems with trying to move forward with SHPD permits and the long time it's been taking. See some action on this. So I'm thrilled to hear that that's moving forward.
Great. Well, and then the third pig is all about the building permits. And so there was a lot of discussion about the 4 counties all have different systems, and then SHPD has its own system. And so there's been discussion about, you know, how can we help streamline? Now, on Maui, we have maps, right? And so, which is a huge step up from Kiva, which we had a long time since the 90s. But now we have maps, and maps goes through, and you can see some of the reviews, and you can see some of the updates. That doesn't mean they're getting done faster, but you can see them, right? It's basically put in some tracking. But you go for the building permit first, typically. But for example, on Big Island, their average time to get a building permit is less than 50 days, 50 days, and they issue 1 permit, meaning the building permit, the electrical permit, and the plumbing permit is issued in 1. And I can tell you when the architect and when the Big Island employees were talking about this, everybody in the room, because who's on the Speed Task Force representing Maui. I'm representing the state, but I'm from Maui, and I'm representing Maui too. But it's me, Councilmember Yuki Lei, and then Maui County employee Jordan Molina. And so that's the 3 of us out of 34 from Maui, which is one of the main reasons why I volunteered to be on all 3 pigs, is I thought, if I don't, who's going to voice not only as the customer, as the builder, what about all the issues that are going on in Lahaina, Puamana? There's some stuff going on in Ma'alaya, Sugar Beach, like all of that stuff, where it's like, who's representing them? And so, yeah, it was really interesting. But the building permits, by far, that pig, instead of a 2-hour weekly meeting, that was often a 3-hour, sometimes 3.5-hour weekly meeting. And we were talking about what can we do regarding getting an approval as quickly as possible. And one of the things that came up was when the building code, right? There's different years of building code. Every once in a while, the building code is updated. And then the state, the counties will decide which year they're going to pick, right? Which year they're going to pick for the building code. So then when the plan reviewers come in, they know when the rules have changed with the updated building codes. Well, what we discovered is that if the building code is updated too quickly, it sends shockwaves into the county reviewers, into the architects. And so it's like this huge learning curve. It's like the tango, 2 steps forward, one step back. And it's like, okay, wait a minute, what just happened? And so it's sort of this lull that is, so we were talking about the building codes. One of the other things that came up, which was interesting, was they said, well, why can't we just self-certify? Why can't we, as an owner, as an architect, as an engineer, say we're creating this home or this business, and we're just going to go back to the county and say, this is exactly how it was. And then, and Maui has this, it's called a plan review waiver. And it's hard, and it's very hard because you cannot deviate at all. There's no field fitting at all from the plans, at all. I think I made that clear. And so what ends up happening is that the onus then is on the architect or the engineer, whoever stamps the plans, and the contractor to build it exactly to the plans. And then that liability goes on to the stamp, and that ends up what it is. And so the plan review waivers often are quite expensive because the architects have to carry that much more liability. But
Right.
it's an option. It's an option, and you can get permits through faster. But where's the headache? Is it the time or is it the money? If you knew you were going to get a building permit approval faster, would you pay more money? Maybe, right? Maybe. Right. So that's just one of many things. Out of the 3 pigs, we had over 100 recommendations put forward. And with me and the support and all the people that I had talked to, not just on Maui, but also through the Small Business Regulatory Review Board, other contractors in other locations, I put forward 20 of those 100.
That's fantastic because you have such extensive experience in this area, and this is when it comes to housing, this is a top area. We did 2 housing summits in 2017 and again in 2019. There's so many recommendations out there that we just need to get moving forward with. I remember on the first day when they did the overviews of all of the counties on their building permit process, I love that Kauai said, well, if there's a hiccup, we actually call them.
Right?
We listened to everybody's presentation, and Kauai said, yeah, well, we believe in customer service rather than making them wait or sending a letter back and forth. We call the customer and tell them what we need. And we have people on Maui going, my God, we could wait months to just even understand that there's a little hiccup and we need something.
Yeah, one of the things that came out.
We were floored watching that. I mean, it was just amazing to hear what each county is doing. Did you get to, because each county was also using, you mentioned that Maui has the MAPS program, and each county, had their own. Was there any discussion on the integration of that, or where there might be layers of integration?
Yes, in fact, the chair, Gregor Iligan, who is a state representative out of Puna, he is very savvy in these kind of questions and in these kind of meetings. And it's really amazing to watch him because 34 people and we're all doers. There's a lot of moving parts. And he's the one that came up with, he said, why can't we create one software, get the software techies together, and including the one for HICRIS, which is Shifty's program, and with their proposed heat maps, and why can't we overlay? Why can't we create one system instead of creating all of these different systems? And so, again, if it was even a possibility of a solution, we had to put it on the table. That was my philosophy, which is why I had so many recommendations. Yeah.
No, I think that's great. And we should, I really want to sing the chair, Gregor Iligan's praises. He has diligently worked to get this up and running, get it up and running quickly. He worked on the legislation. This is a huge step forward as we talk about business-friendly solutions for our state. Housing is a critical need statewide, and this is one of our top priorities to see housing move forward. So this has been amazing, and you're, everybody who knows that you're on this is very grateful. And for those who are now listening, I'm sure they're grateful as well because, hours each week is tremendous, and to serve on all 3 of the investigative committees is such a huge commitment on your part. So I really want to thank you for that. Let's talk about the upcoming meeting, because now we're on to sort of next steps, and we're gearing up for this year's legislative session.
Yep. So the task force in the original legislative bill that was passed last leg session 2025 made the task force last for 2 years. And in that, there would be 6 official meetings. The first one already occurred in September 11th, and that's what formed the 3 pigs starting in October. That's how that happened. The second official meeting will be next Tuesday. And by the way, you can watch this on Zoom. People can testify, like it is a open meeting. And I will be there in person. And the goal of that meeting is to take and to actually talk and hash out the recommendations that are coming from the pigs. In fact, all 34 task members were encouraged and offered to put in one additional recommendation as an individual. So I don't know how long Tuesday's meeting is going to go. I know my flight's at 5. But regardless, it's going to be quite lively because there was a lot of talk, and I know there will be more talk. I suspect that the Tuesday's meeting will create some kind of a draft legislation that might help Shifty put forward things like the heat maps, right? In this legislative session coming up. At the end of the legislative session, I believe the next official task force meeting is going to be at the conclusion of the ledge session, I think. They haven't told us all of the scheduled meetings yet, but I know that the next group of 3 pigs is going to be in May. So I'm assuming there's going to be a meeting before that will form the pigs that start in May. And then there will be another group of 3 pigs starting in October again. So there'll be a total of 9 meetings. And if you're going to ask if I intend to serve on all 9 pigs, the answer is yes. And here's why. This task force, I have no idea what is going to be the end result of this task force. I don't know what it's going to look like. Is it a piece of legislation? Is it memos from Department of Health saying that we can self-certify a non-bedroom room? I don't know what that is. But my take on all this is if the task force fails, and whatever that would mean, it's not going to be because I didn't try. It's not because I didn't put the effort in and a lot of volunteer hours. And I can tell you, my friends and family have noticed this where I go, sorry, guys, I can't do this because I've got a pig meeting, or I got a task force meeting, or I'm going to write my monthly update letter that I send back to the Small Business Regulatory Review Board prior to their monthly meetings. I always send them an update letter, and I have a mailing list that I email out every time saying, here's what happened, here's the latest, here's where we're going, this is what I know. And I just try to be as transparent as possible. And this is hard because at the end of the day, it may result in nothing. It may result in nothing, but it won't be because we didn't try.
Right. And yes, and in addition to the effort, what I am also deeply grateful for was that this also, in the establishment, Chair Iligan said this is going to be very public. So information is available for people to find online. And I think that it's critically important that people who, I really think anybody who cares about housing, a huge part of affordability, most residents don't understand, the why costs keep rising at an exponential rate. And of course, now with, tariffs and other issues and shipping issues and supply issues, you can multiply that many times over. But the key thing has always come down to permitting and infrastructure are the 2 key things that the time the developers have to continue paying on land before they can even develop it, right? Paying mortgages on those lands and the carrying costs of that. Many people don't understand at all how this works. And then just the infrastructure and then, with all of this is permitting. So this all takes so much time to get through that the costs just keep racking up. And the longer we wait on doing the infrastructure development, the more costly it gets. And the longer they're holding on to land that they cannot improve and develop to meet the needs of the community. I mean, these are critical things. So I was very impressed by the 3 pigs that they started with, because this is also beyond just beyond housing. We're focused on this because we've got critical issues here, but they will down the road, if this is successful, also be looking at other business friendly permits, and other things that will affect, maybe getting a certificate of occupancy or other things down the road that will help help in many other ways. But this was the first swipe at, and they swung big on this one. They swung really big on this first movement, and I'm so proud. And Jen, I just want to say thank you so much for serving. This has been a huge commitment of your time and a great service to the community. And I just want to thank you for everything you're doing. It's been a tremendous effort, and I really appreciate you. And I appreciate you being here today for the update.
Absolutely. My pleasure. And I wouldn't have it any other way.
God bless you. You're a great advocate and an amazing champion. Thank you so much, and thank you for joining us today, and have a wonderful holiday season.
Mahalo. You too.
Thank you, Jen. Mahalo. Jennifer Salisbury, she's amazing, and we're also blessed to have her on the Small Business Regulatory Review Board, who looks at a very wide variety of regulatory issues, and so we're thrilled to have her there as a champion as well. Well, our next guest is Robbie Dean. Again, many of you know him as a real estate broker here in Maui, but also he's talking to us today about American craft. So he has an interesting story. He went to Ithaca in 1972 after graduating from Purdue University. He started Zeppeli Z Pottery in Varna, selling only his own pottery in the beginning, but now he has celebrated 54 years after offering art and the soul of America's finest potters, glass blowers, fiber artisans, woodworkers, and other artisans. And we're here to have him on the show this morning to tell us a little bit about this amazing business.
All I'm getting
Good morning, Robbie.
All I'm getting is voicemail from him, Pam.
Oh, okay. Well, we're hoping to have Robbie on.
I'm going to keep trying.
Okay, fantastic. Yeah, so Robbie has been a longtime member of the Maui Chamber of Commerce, and we're, as I mentioned, thrilled to have him on. This is kind of, I love hearing the story about this business because it reminds me of the importance of looking at, both art in his realm. He unites different artisans together and brings them together in a place where he can feature their amazing products and market them together, kind of like what we do with our annual Hawaiian Airlines Made in Maui County Festival, right, where we bring in local manufacturers. We also have artisans, of course, in there as well, but all locally manufactured made products, from clothing to food products to art to home decor to jewelry and fashion. So many amazing things, to just even our beverage purveyors as well. So many, it started with coffee and then tea and of course, spirits as well, and just over time it continues to grow. But when you bring people together in an arena like this, it's really, it leverages opportunities, and you're bringing people together in a space that those who are attracted to those kinds of spaces can come and find so many amazing things. And who doesn't like supporting local artisans and crafters? So I'm hoping we get Robbie on, because I want to hear more about these potters and glass blowers and fiber artists and woodworkers and everybody that's involved in the store, and to hear about what he's doing outside of the state, but doing these unique products and making them available.
I'm still trying.
You're still trying. Okay. I know that's it's a cell phone number, so I'm not sure if we're going to get Robbie on. Well, let me know, Gary. Flag me when we get Robbie on.
Okay.
But in the meantime, I do kind of would like to circle back to the Speed Task Force. And, Jen was, I'm sorry, I call her Jen, Jennifer Salisbury, did a really great job explaining all the many things. And I loved that very early on, there were, before the main meeting that Jennifer talked about to establish the task force and unite the members, there were presentations done across the state to talk about the legislation that helped enable it, to talk about the 3 areas that they plan to start in, which were the areas that we covered, in terms of the building permit process, the state historic preservation, and again, the Department of Health, and talking about the wastewater issues. Those were highly recognized as things that crossed over statewide and, definitely had a role for improvement. Also, as Chair Gregor Illigan talked very quickly about the importance of using new technology tools, looking at different applications for the different technology tools, finding ways to be more efficient, more transparent, Also using technology to speed up these processes and to bring together more information so we could have a better view. So not just speeding it up for the purpose of speeding it up, but being able to use the technology to leverage, multiple ways of looking at the data to give us more information, but in a shorter period of time for better decision making, which is really important. And she kind of shared through some of that in terms of some of the challenges that you have with different overlays of building permits and things, and looking at ways to do that. And then also going back to how we coordinate between agencies. And this is long, especially with the State Historic Preservation Division, when you've got county permits and state permits, the time it takes, what are the deadlines, what can people count on in this process? There's so much uncertainty in building that it's been a significant challenge. And this has gone on long before I joined the chamber. Again, and it'll be close to 20 years. Well, it'll be 20 years next April, but this has gone on for a very long period of time. And we've had many solutions from outside of the state of Hawaii, where people have traveled abroad and learned from others. So we really need to look at not only the coordination, but how do we standardize some of this, and so that's making it more efficient. And I love that he's looking at these overlays, because again, when we heard from each of the county departments, to have the permitting departments from each county present, knowing that each one was on a different software platform, but they had all tried to modernize using these new technology, using these new platforms. And we had recently, took us a long time to move from Kiva to the MAPS program here in Maui County, but we're there now. But we also are saying, okay, given this, how are others doing it? What timeframes are they able to do? And to set clear timelines, because when you're talking about investing in infrastructure, when you're talking about housing development, even whether it's a big housing development for local residents or your private home, you're borrowing money. There's money involved, and you need to look at when are you going to be able to utilize that property? When are you going to be able to start getting a return on this investment that you're making, whether it's your personal, your business, or a community development for our residents and our Ho'ohana to stay here at home? All of these things have to be considered. And in some cases, there aren't standardized timelines. Again, we all hear about staffing delays, and that's causing havoc in the system. And while we're seeing some movement now with rates coming down a little bit, it's still not in the heyday where we had really low rates, and that was spurring investment and creating jobs and getting homes built sooner. So all of this, to see that they're bringing this up, again, is so helpful. And to see that also in bringing this up, as I mentioned earlier, they're looking at the speed task force in terms of also not only what does it mean to, just supporting our residents, getting things done in a reasonable time frame, saving people money because we're moving the process forward, but also what are the economic impacts that come from this, right? Reduce costs and burdens for all, for homeowners, for the home builders, for county and state who are working on housing solutions. We're talking about the possibility of greatly reduced federal funding these days, which has helped fuel home building and infrastructure development in the past. So we now have to look at other ways where areas that maybe we had more subsidies, if we lose some of those subsidies in some of these areas, what other things can we do to find ways to streamline and not continue to see costs continue to rise? Getting projects out faster, right? Getting houses built, getting commercial spaces open, getting businesses in those spaces where they can operate. After the wildfires, we saw many businesses lost their business location, and people were scrambling to move till they could rebuild. This is huge for Maui. I mean, it's huge for our entire state, but for us here in Maui right now, particularly after the wildfires, particularly after our rising median home prices that continue to go up as we predicted in 2019, we've got to find ways to bring costs down, to build both commercial spaces, but of course, housing has been a top priority for the Chamber of Commerce for decades, but in particularly the last decade and a half has been a critical crisis that we've been working to address. We've got to find ways to do that. And with a strong regulatory environment that people can depend on, they can count on, there's timelines, there's commitments to getting permits out in a certain period of time. There's commitments between coordination between state and county. That will spur increased investment in projects, and it changes the environment for investing because now it's predictable. You're showing that it's a more efficient environment, that you can count on some of the promises made, that you can count on the regulatory environment, that the deadlines will be met. And there's other ways to look at solutions. I know we always talk about staffing, but there's ways to outsource many things. And all of that in terms of moving things forward more quickly. Again, not without appropriate reviews. We're not talking about avoiding reviews that are necessary. We're talking about ways to get those reviews done or ways to hold people accountable, right? To say, if you skipped a step, then you're signing up on this and you're saying if you didn't do what you said you'd do, you're going to be held accountable for that, which is really important. But then this also speeds up development. It benefits our economic health, right? It leads to more employment opportunities. And this is something that has been really a key step in what we talk about in terms of where Hawaii falls. I mentioned last week, in terms of being a business-friendly environment, we are next to last out of 50 states. We are at 49, so just one up from the bottom. We've often been at the bottom, and it usually sometimes we're two up from the bottom. Once, I think, maybe once or twice, maybe just a few rungs higher, but not much. We're always in that sort of very bottom realm. And this hampers investment. And not only does it hamper what happens in our building arena, it's critically important to housing, but it also hampers our economic development arena. And if we want to diversify our economy, which on Maui we desperately do, and in the state of Hawaii we know we need some diversity. Tourism is a great economic engine, but we are looking for more diversity to sustain us long term. We need to spur investment and have a business-friendly environment. So I just wanted to share that with you. I'm so sorry we didn't get to hear from Ravi Dean, but we just want to wish everybody a happy holiday season. I won't be talking to you until after the first of the new year, so have a wonderful holiday celebration for 2026. We'll be back then. Blessings and best wishes always. Aloha and a hui ho.